Hello, welcome to another episode of Forgotten Cemeteries, Pacific Northwest. Today we're at Cooper Mountain Evangelical Cemetery. It's located in Aloha, Oregon, Washington County. Alternative names to this cemetery include Gassner Road and Cooper Mountain. I think that's another one of those old misspellings in the archives. So let's go meet some of the local residents and hear their story. So the first thing I want to say real quick is just thank you for subscribing and watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. I also say at the end of my videos on that very long tour that I usually do, which maybe some people don't make it that far, and very understandable. I always say, you know, if you have any cemeteries in your area that you know about that are kind of the older pioneer ones, or kind of want to do like a little history run through, feel free to comment below and say, hey, can you visit this cemetery in Lynn County, for example, or Washington County? Open to pretty much anything. I just did one on Mount Hope Pioneer Cemetery down in East Salem, and that was a really good recommendation. So a little history behind Cooper Mountain Evangelical Cemetery. It was established in 1899. There's an estimated 100 to 500 burials here per the Oregon Burial Site Guide. Find a Grave, however, has 214 burials with 99% of the cemetery residents documented. There wasn't a whole lot of information on this cemetery. I kind of struggled with it a little bit. I came across the Daughters of the Revolutionary website, who you saw out front. They erected a little memorial out front, which is really cool, and I believe they take care of that now, the cemetery in general. The land on which the cemetery is located was owned by Perry Cooper through a donation land claim in 1853. Perry would donate 1 acre for the cemetery. There's no year on exactly when that happened, but the land officially became a cemetery when Moses and Martha Dillaboy bought the land in 1899. The earliest residents at Cooper Mountain are buried here. A church used to be located here, similar to Cooper Mountain Catholic Cemetery that we visited from my other vid. There was a United Brethren church. A one-room old school style church was here, but unfortunately it deteriorated and had to be torn down. The Beaverton chapter of DAR applied to Washington, D.C. to erect a plaque in this cemetery, so a garage sale was held and raised money to build a plaque. There seems to be a lot of Maine and North Carolina transplants here in my research. Overseas wise, we have Germans, Swedes, Norwegians, and one Austrian, I believe. I think his name's Maximilian or something. We'll have to keep an eye out for him. Okay, here we have Charles Sumner Merrill, born in Maine in 1839. He's one of the earliest birth dates in the cemetery, I believe. He is a Civil War veteran who served for the 19th Maine Infantry. I think this is our first Maine serviceman. 19th Maine Infantry fought for 2 days at Gettysburg. Selden Connor being amongst one of the Union commanders for that battle. Looks like the 19th also took part in the Battle of the Wilderness, one of the more violent battles. That was the first offensive displayed by the Union Army against the Confederate capital of Richmond, and that was led by Grant. That battle had no real winner, I guess, in my readings. The Union drove back the Confederates. In that battle, the Union lost 17,000 men and the Confederates lost 7,000. So apologies if I'm talking kind of quiet. This is in a neighborhood where the houses are very close to the cemetery, and it's about 7 in the morning, so I don't want to wake anyone up. So I'm trying to talk as quiet as I can. So here we have Moses and Martha Dillaboy. They're the individuals that donated the land back in 1899 for this cemetery, and they're front and center, kind of right when you pull in, you'll see them immediately. Moses' father is from Germany, and mother is from Canada from my readings. Moses was born in 1840. He immigrated to Canada in 1862. Martha was born in Illinois in 1841. Together they would have about 5 children. Other than that, just couldn't find anything else on them. Limited information. Alright, here's Louisa. I think I'm saying that first name right. That's a different one. Della Arndt Carey. So Lisa was born in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, and would die in 1930. This is the first time we're seeing the Neighbors of the Woodcraft marking right here in the center. I wasn't familiar with that one. Again, I'm just learning as I go with you guys. So the story goes, a woman named Cece von Ornsdale passed a resolution to break off from the Woodmen of the World fraternity and form the Pacific Circle Women of the Woodcraft. I guess this section was first located in Colorado, but would relocate to Portland, Oregon in 1905, where it remained until the 1970s. The Neighbors of the Woodcraft had a ritual which included annual passwords, initiation rites, and ritual obligation. It's pretty serious stuff here. Once each year, a member was required to reaffirm their obligation on obligation night. Now is the abbreviation for them. We now know Now building in downtown Portland as the Tiffany Center, where their headquarters was moved to originally. In 1993, Now sold the building and moved out its remaining office space. The Neighbors of the Woodcraft merged into the Woodmen of the World in 2001. And one of the things I noticed, they seem to always have three sayings. We saw that with other fraternities, but their saying is courage, hope, and remembrance. Louisa's father, George Arndt, served in the Wisconsin Cavalry during the Civil War as well. Alright, here we have Eliza Smith. She was born in 1833. Another website says December 1832. Which one it is, she appears to have been adopted and may have been of Pennsylvania Dutch extraction. There's a very long forum post that came across about this woman. It went on and on and on. I mean, someone did a lot of research on her. So I won't go into too much because I think we'll be here for about 2 hours talking about her history and how she ended up here. But the little bullet points I picked up were, looks like Eliza's real parents may have had Eliza out of wedlock, which was obviously a big no-no back then. Her real parents' names were Aaron Gones and Ann Leonard. Aaron was only 16 years old, with Anne being 15 years old at the time of conceiving Eliza. She would be adopted by a woman named Polly Bollinger, who lived next door to the couple. There appears to be some family relation there. I don't know if she adopted her just to take her in because, you know, she was born out of wedlock to avoid any issues. But Eliza somehow ended up in Oregon because the majority of the people in this story were from North Carolina. Her death certificate shows that she was widowed, was married to a man named Daniel Smith at one time. She did have 3 daughters, but apparently only 2 are with Daniel. Daniel Smith would die in 1863. He was part of the 27th Regiment of North Carolina. Unfortunately, he was killed in the Battle of Bristow Station during the Civil War. I think in that forum post, I also read the woman buried next to her, Laura Young, is potentially her daughter. Like I said, it was a very long forum post, and someone was really going through a lot of research to find out Eliza's story. So only a few plots down, we have George Washington Miller. He's another North Carolina resident born in 1859. John's father was a farmer and was called the Civil War. He would fight on the front lines and unfortunately was killed in battle. So therefore, George would be raised by his mother, Minerva Miller, and he lived with her till he was about 18 years old. George appears to be well educated and studied the care of fielding and cultivating crops. By 1878, he was active in the farming trade for about 11 years in North Carolina. In 1889, he went west with his wife, Mary Alice Smith Miller. He got a job as a farmhand and worked his way up, saving money. He eventually had the means to buy a farm and acquire it in 1901. He would turn 85 acres of high-quality crops, and George was very intricate, from my understanding, in his approach to farming. He was known as one of the biggest enterprising ranchmen in Washington County at that time. George was also a member of the Woodmen of America, the Reedville Camp Group. And I believe this is his wife, buried next to him, Mary Miller. And the last on our list is Dr. Frank S. Locke, with the sunrise coming over and illuminating his name, apparently. So he was born in 1837 in Virginia. He would become a practicing physician and enter the ministry as well. Came to Oregon in 1888, pretty late arrival for our style, but at first he lived in the Dalles and then Lafayette. He owned a drugstore at St. Helens and later at Troutdale. When he left Troutdale, he moved to University Park, which is just a neighborhood in downtown Portland. His obituary says he was pretty well respected throughout the state. The name Locke is well known, pioneer name from my understanding in Oregon. There's even a Locke cemetery in Corvallis. Harris Porter Locke, unsure if he's related to Frank here, came to Oregon in 1845 and also led wagon trains out to Oregon at a later date. The Locke family, however, came out to Oregon in 1847. Alright, figured we'd start our little mini tour. Looks like there's a little bench over here with a marker. The BSA Eagle Project. Wonder what that was. Overall, kept hitting roadblocks with this cemetery. There was kind of limited info to go on overall. It was a little frustrating. I tried to contact some people and just kept hitting dead ends on things, and you know, who was the holder of the historical records. So at some point I was like, I'm just gonna leave people alone, I guess, and just do my thing. I did try to look up the last names here in this book I have that's from, I think it was written in 1885. It has a ton of pioneers in it and a lot of little, you know, little write-ups, like a paragraph like this person was from here and this is what they did. And it's a really good guide. I just got it last week. But yeah, I looked up all of those last names from the cemetery in that book, and not one was in there. So, like I said, a lot of roadblocks. Nice old school style. We got Lars Nilsson. This is born in 1856, maybe. If you come here, there is a couple spaces for parking. It's on the grass. It's well maintained for the most part, and I think that's because of the Beaverton Dar group. Stuffing. Looks like we got a little marker here. Yeah, can't really make it out. 1868. Looks like Stoller Funeral Chapel. An old one too, 1911, 1912, a year old. Jane Brooks, 1848. Big headstone. This one's really wore out. Not too bad, actually. I should take that back. Just some weird black stuff growing on it. That's a nice one. It's got the lighthouse, I believe, on the left. For seeing a lot of religious headstones, and that kind of makes sense when it's labeled as Evangelical Cemetery. And this is another example of Find a Grave having things upright in pristine condition. I think I read about her. She was Maria del Rocio Carrera Rodriguez. She was born in Zacatecas, Mexico, if I remember right. She very young when she died. I think it was 40? think it was cervical cancer. Unfortunately, that was a sad story to read. A pretty epic headstone coming up soon. Another young death due to cancer, unfortunately. But I figured, you know, something new I'd add to the tours is talking about some of the more recent people in the cemetery, if anyone's interested in that. And that would be here of Curtis Allen Safford, I think is how you say his last name, who was a USC graduate. He would die of cancer at only 33 years old. Let's check out. Yeah, there's Curtis's little nameplate. But definitely one of the more epic headstones. The American flag over here. Let's go check it out. Usually that means a vet. Yeah. Helen Gaylord Wayland, World War II. Good Conduct Medal. World War II Victory Medal. This would be the Henry's plot. There's 3 of them. All from the 1800s. Good thing about visiting the cemeteries very early, and these older ones, is, as you see, we're by ourselves again. So it's just us and some owl hooting. So Newman was a name. It seems like a popular last name, a very famous last name in general, but nothing on them. And that'll be the Dill Boys over there, the ones that donated this land. And you can see here's another Newman. Massive headstone. Oh, check this out. I don't know. Won't attempt that. Arcadia, Greece. Flag on there. Dennis gone hunting. You've seen that a few times now, the gone hunting and gone fishing. It's always funny. Let's see, we got 2 plots here. Let's reverse it. McLeod right there. See their plot. There's some little ones here. Earth is trying to swallow them up. From the 1869 Sylvie Sally. Looks like we got Frank Sally. Nancy Lake with a pretty early birth date of 1839. I wish we could find their stories so we could talk about them, but sometimes it's just the way it goes. This will be the Carries over here. We talked about Louisa with that marker. I'll get in close so you guys can see it if you're interested. But that's the first time we've seen Neighbors of the Woodcraft. And there's that last name, Grabhorn. I think they used to own the cemetery, if I remember right. That seems familiar when I was doing my little research, when I was trying to find who was in charge of this cemetery and if they had any stories to share. And because there's supposed to be some Revolutionary War ancestors. Well, they had ancestors that fought in the Revolutionary War that are buried here, and kept coming up short. I couldn't find anything no matter how much I looked. There is some interesting stories out there somewhere. I just maybe just didn't have access to them, I guess, in the end. Sources are only go so far until you have to start paying money for things. And my gut, though, tells me that the Revolutionary War people are probably related to the war vets. The last name Arndt and York. That would be my guess. Because those are the only ones I could really find in the Revolutionary War records. Pretty. Let's work our way back up in the middle. Kind of no burials down here. It's an interesting one. Very elaborate. Pretty striking one there as well. This one's just a couple of years ago. I don't know, is that Russian? Maybe someone out there can identify that. Looks like Russian. There's another one, different language on it. Uska. Rosie Vega, very elaborate burial. That one's one of the best I've seen, actually. Like that big cross on there. I don't know what this is right in the center. Maybe it's just a bird perch, maybe, I don't know. That's what it looks like with the little branch on top. Interesting one. It's got a bridge on the left. I wonder if that's maybe the Golden Gate Bridge? Not really sure. Unless it's a bridge in Oregon. There's a big tomb-like looking one. Let's check it out. Wow. Butler. Looks like Donald is buried here, but Diana is not yet. Donald's waiting on her. Also the name Judy at the top. It's kind of like an erected stone pillar up there. I wonder if there's a child buried there too. I like that with the heart And then the forever symbol. That was a cool idea and design. Here's Reese Connor Wygant. Pretty awesome writing. Looks like he was a football player at one time and he liked root beer. Who doesn't like root beer? Oh man, he was very young. He was only about 17, 18. This guy is Jeffrey David Anderson. The little park bench so you can come hang out, gather your thoughts. If you need to get away from the world, it's very quiet out here so far. Then again, it is 7 in the morning. Big hunk there. I thought that was at Maximilian for a second, but it is not. I think it said he was from Austria or something. Don't know if anyone's buried here, maybe. Just seems to be a tree stump with a little angel in there, so maybe that's a child's marker. And then we have Joyce and Aline Brown. A little hard to read for me. There is a lot of Bible verses as well at the cemetery written on the headstones. Oh, that's pretty wore out. I can't read it. Maybe it'll look better on the camera. Please do not encroach. Oh, okay. Getting towards the end here. This must have been a handyman. You can see right there. There's tools in there, and then another lighthouse symbol. Another elaborate one. I like this idea of like turning it almost into a garden. You have your little borderline and then you grow a couple flowers. This is a great idea, but I don't stick the camera in too far, but that's Martin Morton Samuel Proper. Very epic name. Finally, in the corner, got graves with a dolphin, a turtle, and a butterfly. And there's one more marker I saw online. Pretty old school, but looks like he died in the year 2000. But I like this design. It looks like they sort of welded it in almost, but that's a Geronimo. And that is pretty much the end of the tour. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to say it again in case you missed it in the beginning. If you have any other recommendations on cemeteries to visit in the state of Oregon, it's kind of the older ones, the pioneer ones, and maybe just want to see if there's any history to it, to the people, feel free to leave a comment. Thanks for watching and have a great day.